In the Hearts and Minds, Book 0, The Birth of a Hero, Story 28, This is How Villains Are Made, / What It Means to Be Human, 7. They had not sent a lot of soldiers to kill him. They had been foolish to think they could get him to go with them without becoming a corpse first. I believe in truth, the hawk said, beaming a bit as she saw his plants deactivated. Iago bent down to Pepper's curled form. The man's mouth was open in the remnant of a cry. Iago shut it, working his jaw closed, his eyes strangely docile in death. Blood soaked into Iago's knees. Warm, too warm. Death was not the end. Not for everyone. There were those who had died unfair deaths, those who could not move past what had been done to them. If Iago died today, he knew he would show up at Pinata's side, blue as can be. No. He would make certain to stay away from her, if it came to that. He knew their bluesies would help keep his secret. Pinata was not allowed to be hurt by his inadequacies, not even as a minor consequence. I cried for you, Iago told the corpse. I didn't even cry for Flora, but you were so... I thought it was goodness. I thought it was joy and life that made you so bright. I don't know what it was now. I don't know what you thought you were doing, what you were thinking when... Iago took a deep breath. Chickens aren't found in the wild anymore, dumbass. It doesn't matter how they used to live. It's not like they remember their ancestors flying all around, wherever and whenever they wanted. It doesn't fucking matter how meaty their legs are, or how their wings get clipped. Wild isn't something chickens can be born with. Not anymore. And yet... Iago looked up at the hourglass hair and the mania pouring from the face of the broken soldier who thought herself a preacher. And yet, do I just need to rip your eyes out for you to stop seeing us? What? Iago lunged. Up above his head, bodies started plummeting to the ground around him. Shots reverberated, shots that weren't intended to fire at once or at all. Arlie dropped each one of those soldiers like flies. Truvians were used to trench warfare and small-scale invasion forces. They weren't used to being hunted in the shadows. His fingers were already at the hawk's eyes before she could move, before she could register the bodies of her comrades falling around her. Arrogant, she had thought she could convince and threaten Iago and Arlie. Iago Denfar and Arlie Medivo of the fucking flavors around the world. Her eyes, though pure white, were just as soft as anyone else's. She still screamed when he tore them out. He imagined what those at Paradise had felt when they realized they could not outrun the missiles from the sky. He imagined what it felt like to be Bran Medivo, forced into battle as a 12-year-old, told to murder strangers or he would be locked in darkness and starved until he swore his loyalty. He imagined the reporters who had gone missing, the Frosted who had awakened, accidentally killing their loved ones because their government wanted to gamble with their lives. He thought of the rioters in Cherney, the biological weapons sprayed on them from the forces who had promised peace in all the news bulletins. He thought of the hawk, screaming and clawing at him, so thin she was the weakest Frosted he had ever met. Because of her power, she had been treated like royalty. She had been treated so well that she had never tasted what it felt like to die, and die again, and again, and again. Iago squashed her eyes like filmy grapes, stomping them beneath his boots. Blood poured in cascading streams between her lips and hands and nose. The hawk fell to her knees. Her comrades littered around her. There was a buzzing sting across Iago's temple. He'd probably been grazed by one of the stray bullets. It was sheer luck that was all he'd scraped away with. Arlie launched themselves from the loft, landing with a cloud of dust that smelled overbearingly of copper. Their hair was plastered to their face with the kind of sweat that came from blood loss, but they remained steady on their feet. For a while, the two of them looked down at the bodies, the screaming frosted. Eventually, the woman passed out from shock and anemia, and Iago knew they would have to make a decision. He had tried so hard to keep his hands clean of gore. Iago didn't think he could stay on this side of that line for much longer. "That solves one problem," Arlie said, voice pinched with repressed pain. Iago didn't have much medical on him. They would have to find somewhere that did. It would be a hike, since they were miles from the nearest town. "It solves two," Iago said, carefully. For better or worse, this day had brought about a certain level of closure. He felt he could put Paradise to rest. He could almost put Ground Hollow to rest. Not yet, but soon. "Lots more questions, though," Arlie grunted, and Iago agreed. "Answers can be found in the hint of despair," he mused, or something like that. "I don't feel very despairing. How about you? Are you in despair?" Arlie shrugged their shoulders. "I can't believe my brother has to work with maniacs like that," they snorted. "Heroes, what a joke." "We're severely uninformed," Iago sighed. "I don't know how to break this to Nadi, her family. Maybe there was a reason they disappeared. The women in her line have been gifted for generations. It makes sense if they have some knowledge about whatever that was, in Tuca." "We looked for years and couldn't find them," Arlie said. "How can we find those who don't want to be found?" Iago looked down at the squashed eyes on the floor. His hands were still sticky with fluid and blood. "Weren't you paying attention?" he teased, chuckling. He'd never laughed while covered in blood before. It felt different. Like he was still playing that character from earlier, the one that had frightened the worm. Hawks have excellent vision. He scooped up the fragments of the eyes, desiccated flaps of white. He dumped them straight into the middle of Rowley's shield. "Hold these," he told it, watching as they sank into the leafy center as if being consumed by a Venus flytrap. "What do we do now?" Arlie asked. If Iago's new role was that of an angry monster, then Arlie had transformed into that of a fragile doll. One wrong word looked like it would knock them over. Iago didn't know if they would get back up on their own. "The people are the villains," Iago snorted, but it wasn't as impressive as Arlie's always were. "I guess the only way forward is to embrace it. They made killing machines into heroes. Why can't I become a villain?" Iago stooped over the unconscious soldier. He tilted his head, considering, then unearthed a knife from the frosted's boot. It was shiny, unmarked, as if it had never been used. He'd never slit anyone's throat before, but with her unconscious, he guessed it didn't much matter. Stab, make blood appear. It was remarkably simple to kill someone. Much harder than it was to save them. Iago and Arlie made quick work of the rest of the soldiers. There were trackers in their clothes. They would soon be collected. When Arlie lost strength and had to sit, Iago finished his message. "Why is it bad to kill people?" he asked. But no one answered. Not his plants, not Arlie. None of the corpses he had spread out into the acronym FA. It was a little grotesque, especially when he'd had to cut off a soldier's arm to finish the third mark on the F. It didn't matter, though, did it? "I can't remember." Rubbing his bloody hands on his bloody pants, Iago sighed and gave up. He reached Arlie's side, their face taut with concentration and pain, deep, deep breathing to slow the blood leaving their body. Ready to go home? Iago asked, smiling. He had also never smiled while covered in blood before. He had a feeling he was going to be doing more of that in the days to come. We have to welcome my daughter into the world,